I never thought one day could completely flip my world upside down. But last Thursday did exactly that. I remember waking up that morning thinking it would be just another regular day. Coffee, work, gym, dinner with my wife. We'd been married for almost 4 years. Nothing perfect, but I thought we were solid. I even texted her something cheesy before heading out. Love you. Let's grab Thai tonight. She sent back a heart emoji. I smiled. That was our thing. Short texts, little emojis, nothing over the top. At lunch, I was sitting in the office cafeteria, scrolling through my phone when I got a message request on Instagram. It was from an account I didn't recognize, a guy named Jason, with a profile photo of a motorcycle. The message read, "Hey man, you don't know me, but you need to see this." I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside were 3 screenshots. One was of my wife, unmistakably her, at a restaurant, sitting close to the same guy who'd messaged me. The second showed them holding hands. And the third was a selfie of the two of them, captioned, "Worth every risk." My hands went cold. My lunch suddenly tasted like cardboard. I stared at the screen for a good minute, trying to convince myself it had to be a misunderstanding. Maybe it was old. Maybe someone was messing with me. But the timestamp in the corner said it all, taken the night before. I remember feeling this weird detachment, like my brain refused to connect the dots. My wife had told me she was working late at a client dinner. I even brought her coffee when she said she was wrapping up. She kissed me goodbye. And now here she was, smiling in another man's arms. I didn't reply to the guy immediately. I just sat there, phone in my hand, trying not to shake. People around me were laughing, talking, eating, like nothing in the world had changed. But for me, everything had. That was the day, the exact moment, my life split into 2 versions. Before that message, and after. That night, I didn't go to the gym. I drove straight home, rehearsing what I'd say the entire way. My mind kept switching between fury and disbelief. One second I wanted to scream, the next I wanted to cry. I couldn't decide whether to confront her calmly or just throw her stuff out the window. She came home around 7:45, same as usual. She had that fake tired smile, the one she always gave after a long day at work. I watched her drop her purse on the counter and kick off her heels like nothing had happened. "Hey," she said, "you didn't go to the gym?" I just stared at her. No, thought we could talk. Something in my tone must have tipped her off because she froze mid-step. "What's wrong?" I took out my phone and slid it across the table to her. The screenshots were open. Her face drained of color the second she saw them. She didn't even try to play dumb. She just went quiet, completely silent. "Who is he?" I asked. My voice cracked. "And how long has this been going on?" She started stammering. "It's not what it looks like." "Then what is it?" "Because it looks like you were out with him last night while telling me you were working late." She swallowed hard. Her hands were shaking. He's just someone from work. We've been hanging out, that's all." "Hanging out?" I repeated. "You were holding hands. You called it worth every risk. Do you even hear yourself?" She started crying. Real tears, not the crocodile kind. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I was lonely. You've been distant lately, always working out or staying late at the office." I felt invisible. That excuse hit me like a slap. So this was my fault now? I wanted to yell, but my voice came out flat instead. "You could have talked to me. You could have told me you felt that way. Instead, you went to him." She kept crying, saying she didn't sleep with him, that it was just emotional, that she didn't want to hurt me. But standing there, watching her try to explain away betrayal like it was a misunderstanding, I realized something that made my stomach twist. She wasn't crying because she regretted what she did. She was crying because she got caught. That was the moment I knew, whatever happened next, our marriage was never going to be the same. After that, the house felt like a vacuum. Silent, heavy, suffocating. She sat on the couch, sobbing quietly, and I stood by the kitchen counter, just existing. I couldn't even look at her. Every time I tried, my brain replayed that picture of her holding his hand like it was burned into my eyelids. She kept whispering things like, "Please don't leave, and we can fix this," but I couldn't process any of it. My mind was in a fog, half anger, half disbelief. I finally said, "I need to know everything. When did it start?" She hesitated. A couple of months ago. That answer made my chest tighten. Months. So, for 2 whole months, every time she told me she was working late, she was with him. Every time she texted me, "Good night, Red Heart," he was probably the one she had just kissed goodbye. I asked if it ever got physical. She swore it didn't. Said it was just emotional. That they would meet for drinks, talk, flirt, but never cross the line. Never cross the line, I repeated. You were holding hands in public. You lied to me. You hid it. That's not crossing a line. She didn't answer. Just cried harder. That's when I noticed something. Her phone was face down on the coffee table. Normally, she'd scroll when she was upset, but not this time. That told me everything. I picked it up and said, "Unlock it." She froze. "What? Unlock your phone." She started shaking her head. "You don't trust me." I laughed bitterly. "You think I should?" After a long pause, she unlocked it. And what I saw next shattered whatever little hope I had left. Messages. Hundreds of them. Hidden under a contact name, Sarah from marketing. But they weren't from a Sarah. It was Jason. And those texts, they weren't emotional. They were intimate. Things no one but a partner should say. Compliments. Inside jokes. Late night, "I wish you were here," texts. I didn't yell. I just handed her phone back and said quietly, "I'm going to stay at my brother's tonight." She grabbed my arm, begging me not to go, crying that it didn't mean anything. But I pulled away. As I closed the door behind me, I felt this strange mix of pain and relief. Pain because everything I believed in was collapsing. Relief because I finally knew the truth. No more lies. No more pretending. That night, I slept on my brother's couch, staring at the ceiling until sunrise. I didn't cry. I didn't sleep. I just thought about how fast life can change, how one message, one secret, one betrayal can rewrite your entire story in a single day. I woke up to the sound of my brother's coffee maker and the smell of burnt toast. For a second, I forgot where I was, that weird in-between moment when your brain hasn't caught up to reality yet. Then it all came crashing back. The screenshots, the crying, her face when I asked her to unlock her phone. My brother, Nate, looked at me and said, "Rough night." I just nodded. I didn't have the energy to explain everything. He handed me a mug of coffee and sat across from me. After a few minutes of silence, I finally said it out loud. "She cheated on me." He didn't look surprised. That stung more than I expected. "You kinda had a feeling, didn't you?" he said gently. I thought about that. Maybe I did. The late nights, the extra perfume, the sudden girls' dinners I was never invited to. I'd noticed. I just didn't want to notice. That morning, I went back to the house to grab some clothes. When I walked in, she was sitting on the floor in her pajamas, surrounded by tissues. She looked wrecked, red eyes, messy hair, still clutching her phone like it might save her. She stood up fast when she saw me. "I didn't sleep at all," she said. "I kept thinking about everything. I know I messed up, but please don't give up on us." I didn't answer right away. I just packed my things into a duffel bag. She followed me around like a shadow. "I'll go to therapy," she said. "We can do counseling. I'll block him. I'll quit my job if I have to." That last part made me stop. "Quit your job?" I asked. She nodded desperately. "Yes. I'll prove to you that you're the only one I want." For a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered every lie she told. Every night she said, "I love you," with another man in her messages. And the sympathy vanished. "I need time," I finally said. "You can't fix this overnight." Her voice cracked. "Does that mean we still have a chance?" I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I thought I knew. And all I could think was how different she looked now that the truth was out. "I don't know," I said quietly. "Right now, I just need space to breathe." Then I walked out again, and this time, I didn't look back. That was the morning I realized betrayal doesn't always end in shouting or breaking things. Sometimes it ends in silence, in the quiet sound of a door closing for the last time on the life you thought you had. 2 days later, she showed up at my brother's place. I wasn't expecting her. Honestly, I was hoping for some space. But when I opened the door and saw her standing there, holding a letter and a grocery bag, I froze. "I brought you breakfast," she said softly, like she was afraid of scaring me away. "And I wrote you something." She handed me the bag first. Coffee, a breakfast sandwich, and one of those little fruit cups I liked. Then the letter. It was folded neatly, written in her careful handwriting. I didn't want to read it, but curiosity got the better of me. It started with, "I know there's nothing I can say to undo what I've done, but I need you to know it wasn't about love. It was about feeling seen. I never wanted to replace you. I just wanted someone to notice me again." It went on for 3 pages, apologies, explanations, promises. She said she had ended things with Jason the night I found out. She said she blocked him, deleted everything, even quit her job like she said she would. By the end of it, she wrote, "If you give me one more chance, I'll spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice." When I finished reading, I didn't feel what I expected. Not anger, not relief, just emptiness. Like all the words in the world couldn't fill the space she'd blown open inside me. I asked, "Why didn't you come to me before it got this far?" She bit her lip, looked down. "Because I was scared you'd think I was too needy. You've always been so strong, so put together. I didn't want to be the one dragging you down." That hit hard, because in her eyes, I was too stable to talk to, too calm to confide in. Meanwhile, she'd gone looking for chaos in someone else. "I don't hate you," I said, "but I can't just pretend this didn't happen." She started crying again. "Then what do I do? Just let you go?" I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that every time I looked at her, I saw those screenshots again, those moments that weren't meant for me. She left after that, quietly. No drama, no shouting, just a soft, "I'm sorry," before she closed the door. I sat there for a long time after she left, staring at that letter. The funny thing is, her apology was probably genuine. But instead of making things better, it somehow made it worse, because it reminded me that love wasn't the problem. Trust was. And once that's broken, everything else is just noise. 3 days later, just when I thought things couldn't get weirder, I got another message, this time from him. Jason. It popped up in my Instagram DMs again, same account that sent me the screenshots. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. Part of me wanted to delete it and move on, but curiosity, or maybe anger, won. The message said, "Hey man, I heard she told you everything. I didn't mean for you to find out like that." I stared at my phone for a good minute, hands shaking. He didn't mean for me to find out? What kind of twisted apology was that? Then he followed up. "She said you two were basically done, that you were just living together for convenience." I thought it was okay. That was it. I lost it. I typed back, faster than I could think. "You knew she was married. You saw the ring in every photo. Don't act like you didn't know." He read it instantly. Then, "Yeah, I knew, but she made it sound like it didn't matter. Said you didn't love her anymore." It felt like a punch in the gut, because those were her words. Things she'd said behind my back to justify everything. I replied one last time. "You got played just like I did. Congratulations." And I blocked him. But after that, I couldn't stop thinking about what he said. You two were basically done. That was how she described us. After years together, after everything we'd built, that was her version? The thought ate at me all day. I replayed every fight, every cold dinner, every night we sat on opposite sides of the couch scrolling through our phones instead of talking. Maybe she wasn't completely wrong. We had been drifting. But I never thought it was beyond repair. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing her voice saying, "I just wanted to feel seen." And now I realized she wasn't the only one who felt invisible. I had too. I just handled it differently. I buried myself in work, gym sessions, podcasts, anything to distract myself from the fact that something between us had quietly died. Still, that didn't excuse what she did. You don't fix loneliness by creating more of it. The irony hit me. A single message from a stranger started this mess, and now another message, from the same stranger, had given me clarity. We weren't broken because of him. We were broken long before he showed up. He was just the final proof. A week had passed since everything blew up, and I hadn't been back to the house. My brother kept telling me, "You'll have to go eventually, man." But I wasn't ready. Not to see her, not to see the bed we used to share, not to face the memories still lingering in every room. But that Saturday morning, I woke up and just knew it was time. I needed clothes, documents, and most importantly, closure. When I pulled into the driveway, Her car was gone. Part of me was relieved. I didn't want another round of tears and apologies. The house looked the same, but it felt different, like someone had vacuumed the life out of it. Inside, everything was spotless. Too spotless. The kitchen counters were wiped down. Her things were stacked neatly in boxes labeled mine. She had even left a note on the counter that said, "I'll stay with my sister for a while. Take whatever time you need. I still love you." That last line hit hard. I stood there for a while, just staring at it. I still love you. What did that even mean anymore? I started packing my stuff. Clothes, laptop, a few photos I couldn't bring myself to throw away yet. That's when I noticed something on the fridge, a magnet holding up an old photo of us from our honeymoon in Greece. We were both laughing, her hair blowing across her face, my arm around her shoulders. We looked happy, like we were untouchable, and it broke me. For the first time since all of this started, I actually cried. Not the angry kind, not yelling or punching walls, just silent tears. The kind that come when you realize something beautiful has truly ended. After I pulled myself together, I wandered into the bedroom. The bed was made, her side completely empty. She'd even taken her pillow. But what caught my eye was a small photo frame on my nightstand, a picture of us at a friend's wedding. She'd left it there, maybe intentionally, maybe to remind me of what we lost. I sat on the edge of the bed and whispered to no one. How did we get here? I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that love had slowly turned into routine, and routine had turned into distance, and distance had turned into betrayal. Before I left, I took one last look around the house, the place where we'd laughed, fought, made plans, and dreamed about kids we'd never have now. Then I locked the door, dropped the keys in the mailbox slot, and drove away without looking back. That drive home felt strangely peaceful. Painful, yes, but peaceful too. Like walking away from a fire, knowing it burned you, but also knowing you finally stepped out of the smoke. 2 days after I packed up and left the house for good, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. I'd been screening calls for days, but something made me answer. "Hey, it's Mia," the voice said. It took me a second to register it was her sister. Mia and I had always gotten along. She was younger, more direct, and usually didn't get involved in other people's business. So hearing from her now, it immediately set off alarm bells. She sighed. "I don't want to overstep, but I think you should know what's going on." My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "She's not okay," Mia said. "She's been staying here since you left. Barely eats, barely sleeps. Keeps saying she ruined everything." I didn't say anything. Part of me wanted to care. I mean, despite everything, she was still someone I'd loved deeply. But another part of me felt like that sympathy would pull me back into a place I wasn't ready to return to. Then Mia said something that threw me completely off balance. She told me she didn't even like that guy that much. It wasn't love. It was like she was testing how far she could go before she hated herself. I rubbed my face, exhausted. "That doesn't make it better, Mia. If anything, it makes it worse." "I know," she said quietly. "I'm not calling to make excuses. She's scared you'll hate her forever." I let out a humorless laugh. "I don't hate her. I wish I did. It'd be easier." Mia was silent for a moment. Then she said, "You know, she's always talked about how much you changed her life. Maybe that's why she spiraled. She couldn't handle feeling like she wasn't enough for you anymore." That hit me right in the chest. Because it was true. I had changed. I'd gotten busier, more focused on my career, on improving myself. But I thought I was doing it for us. Turns out, she thought I was leaving her behind. Before we hung up, Mia said something I'll never forget. "Sometimes people break the things they love most just to see if they'll survive without them." After that call, I sat in silence for a long time. I didn't call my wife. I didn't text. I didn't know what to say. Because for the first time, I understood something I hadn't before. Betrayal doesn't always come from hate. Sometimes it comes from fear. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of being left behind. But understanding it didn't mean I could forgive it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That night, I realized healing wasn't about finding answers. It was about learning to live without them. A few nights after that call with Mia, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept looping through everything. The messages, the confrontation, The look on her face when I told her I needed space. It was like my brain refused to give me peace. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my laptop, started a blank document, and began typing. No plan, no outline, just raw thoughts spilling out. What came out turned into a letter. Not one I ever planned to send, but one I needed to write. It started like this. I don't even know who I'm writing to anymore. The woman I fell in love with, or the stranger I found in those messages. I wrote about everything. The morning coffee routines. The long drives with music blasting. The nights we'd laugh about stupid inside jokes that no one else would get. All the small, perfect things that had made our relationship ours. Then I wrote about how it all changed. How the silence grew between us like mold. How I tried to fix things with effort, while she tried to fix things with someone else. You didn't just betray me, I wrote. You betrayed the version of yourself I believed in. By the time I reached the end, it was 3 a.m. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, but weirdly lighter. Writing it all out made the chaos in my head make sense. It didn't erase the pain, but it organized it. The last paragraph read, I don't hate you. I hate what we became. Maybe someday I'll forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Until then, I'm letting go. Not out of anger, but because holding on hurts more than losing you. When I finished, I sat there staring at the screen for a long time. Then I saved the file as letter to her _neversend.txt. And I meant that. I never sent it. Because that letter wasn't for her. It was for me. It was the first real step toward accepting that closure doesn't always come from an apology. Sometimes, it comes from telling the truth to yourself. The next morning, I woke up feeling something I hadn't felt since the day it all fell apart. Calm. That's when I realized that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of my new life. The kind where healing isn't about getting answers from someone else, but finding peace inside yourself. A couple of weeks later, I decided to do something I hadn't done since before the whole mess. Go out. Not to a bar, not to move on, but just to breathe. I went to this little coffee shop downtown I used to love, the kind with soft music and a wall of books people could borrow. I ordered my usual, black coffee, no sugar, and sat by the window. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't thinking about her. I was just there, watching people rush by outside, lost in their own worlds. Then I heard a voice behind me say, "Is this seat taken?" I looked up. It was her. Not my ex, thank God, but someone familiar. Her name was Emma. We'd gone to college together years ago. She'd been in a few of my classes back then, always quiet but sharp, the kind of person who saw things others missed. She smiled awkwardly. "Wow, it's really you. I thought that was you, but I didn't want to be weird." We ended up talking for over an hour. About everything except relationships. Work, travel, books. She mentioned she'd just gotten out of a long relationship herself. There was this unspoken understanding between us. Two people quietly rebuilding from the rubble of heartbreak. It wasn't romantic, not even close. But it felt human, and I needed that. As we said goodbye, she said something that stuck with me. It's strange how life resets itself when you least expect it. Like it gives you a second draft. I walked out of that cafe feeling lighter. Not because I met someone new, but because for the first time, I could talk to someone without comparing them to my past. I could just exist in the moment again. That night, I got a text from my ex. Just one line. "I saw your car near the coffee shop. I'm glad you're doing okay." For a second, that familiar ache came back. The one that made me want to respond, to keep that connection alive. But then I stopped myself. Because she wasn't part of this new version of me anymore. I didn't reply. I just turned off my phone, made dinner, and for the first time in months, ate without that pit in my stomach. That's when I realized healing isn't loud. It doesn't come in big moments. It sneaks up on you quietly, in a cup of coffee, a casual conversation, or the simple act of not replying to a text that once could have broken you. A few days after that cafe encounter, I got an email that made me freeze. It was from my ex. I debated whether to open it for a good 5 minutes. Part of me wanted closure. Part of me didn't want to relive it all. Finally, I clicked. The subject line read, "I owe you more than an apology." Inside was a long message. She admitted everything this time. Not excuses, not half-truths. She explained that she had been struggling with herself, feeling invisible, and that her actions were selfish and cruel. She didn't ask for forgiveness, but she wanted me to know the truth. She regretted hurting me, and she was seeking therapy to understand why she did it. Reading it, I felt a mix of things: sadness, relief, lingering anger, but mostly closure. She wrote one last line that hit harder than I expected. "I hope one day you can trust again, because you deserve to be loved fully and without secrets." I didn't respond. I didn't need to, but I kept the email tucked away in a folder labeled Lessons Learned. After reading it, I realized something important. Closure doesn't always come from the person who hurt you. Sometimes, it was the kind of sleep that feels like exhaling after holding your breath for months. And that's when I knew. The worst day of my life had set me on a path to a better version of myself. Not just someone wiser, but someone who understood boundaries, self-worth, and the fragile nature of trust. The next few weeks were all about rebuilding. Not just my routine, but my life in a way I hadn't realized needed fixing. I threw myself into work, started running again, not obsessively, just enough to feel my body alive, and even picked up an old hobby, painting. Small things, but they made a difference. I also started talking to a therapist. At first, I was skeptical. I thought I just needed to move on. But therapy forced me to face things I'd been ignoring. The resentment, the guilt, the anger that I'd buried under logic and routines. I realized I wasn't just hurt by her betrayal. I was hurt by how blind I'd been to the cracks forming in our marriage long before it ended. Friends noticed the change too. One night, over beers, a buddy said, "You seem lighter, man. Like you're finally breathing again." And he was right. I didn't feel the same constant weight pressing down on my chest. I could laugh without thinking about lies, and I could enjoy moments without comparing them to the past. Even with all that, there were still moments when memories hit. Her laugh, the way she used to braid her hair while watching TV, the way we fought over the dumbest things. I didn't push those memories away. I let them exist, like bookmarks in the story of my life. They were part of me, but they didn't define me anymore. By the end of that month, I realized something profound. The betrayal didn't destroy me. It forced me to see myself clearly, to understand my boundaries, and to value my emotional well-being above anything else. I could have stayed angry forever, but instead, I chose to learn and grow. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. Not because I would forget the past, but because I finally knew I could survive it. About a month after everything, I ran into someone I hadn't expected to see, my old mentor from college, Greg. We bumped into each other at a local bookstore, of all places. I was browsing the self-help section, trying to find something that made sense of my mess of emotions, and he was standing there with a stack of history books. "Hey, long time no see," he said, grinning. We grabbed coffee nearby, and as we talked, I found myself opening up. Not just small talk, but the real stuff. The betrayal, the anger, the sleepless nights. And here's the thing. Greg didn't try to give me cliches or quick fixes. He just listened. Then he said something that hit me like a punch of clarity. "You know, life doesn't stop for anyone. The people who hurt us, the mistakes we make, they're all part of a bigger picture. You can either stay stuck in the part that hurt you, or you can take what you've learned and build something stronger." I nodded, feeling it in my chest. That's exactly what I needed to hear. I realized I'd been surviving my life in fragments. Work here, hobbies there, but I hadn't fully started living. Not really. After that encounter, I made a conscious decision to rebuild not just for recovery, but for growth. I reached out to friends I'd drifted from, reconnected with family, and even started planning a small trip by myself. Something to remind me I existed outside of heartbreak. Most importantly, I started speaking openly about what I'd learned from the betrayal. Not to shame her, not to dwell, but to remind myself and others that trust is fragile and worth protecting, and that your own life doesn't have to collapse because someone else failed you. By the time I left that coffee shop, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. A spark of excitement about the future. Not the hope she'll come back kind, the real kind. The kind where you realize you're the author of your own life. Would you like me to continue with part 14, rebuilding trust in myself? Over the next few weeks, I focused on something I hadn't considered before, trusting myself again. After what happened, I realized betrayal doesn't just hurt because someone else lied. It shakes the foundation of how you see yourself. I questioned my judgment, my instincts, even my ability to recognize love and honesty. I started small. Decisions like choosing what to eat, planning a weekend hike, or even saying no to things I didn't want to do. Each little choice was a reminder that I was in control of my life, that my happiness didn't have to depend on anyone else's actions. I also made an effort to forgive myself for not noticing the cracks, for letting routine blind me, for allowing someone else's actions to define my self-worth. Forgiveness wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. Therapy helped. Friends helped. Even simple moments like running through the park in the early morning helped. I learned to sit with my feelings without letting them dictate my decisions. Anger became clarity. Sadness became perspective. Heartache became a lesson. The most profound change, though, was my ability to engage with relationships differently. Not just romantic ones, but friendships, family, and even colleagues. I became more intentional, careful about who I let in, and clear about my boundaries. I realized trust isn't something you just give. It's something you cultivate, slowly, and it begins with trusting yourself. By the end of that month, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Steady, balanced, not unshakable, but resilient. And for me, that was the real victory, knowing I could survive anything and still stand tall. Would you like me to continue with part 15, reflections and advice? Looking back now, it's crazy to think how one day, one single day, can change everything. The day I discovered the betrayal felt like the end of my world, but in truth, it was the beginning of a new one. Pain has a strange way of teaching you what you need to know, even if you don't want the lesson. Here's what I learned, in no particular order. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. But also, trust yourself to handle the truth when it comes. Betrayal is not your fault. No matter what excuses someone gives, you are not responsible for their choices. Closure doesn't come from them. It comes from understanding, accepting, and forgiving, sometimes yourself first. Healing takes intentionality. Therapy, self-reflection, exercise, hobbies, all of it matters. You have to actively rebuild your life. Life goes on, even when it feels like it won't. The sun still rises, people still laugh, and you will find joy again. Maybe not in the same way, but in a way that's uniquely yours. I don't hate her anymore. I don't think about revenge or pain. I think about what I've learned and how I've grown. And the funny thing? I actually feel grateful. Not for the betrayal, obviously, but for the clarity it gave me. I now know who I am, what I value, and that my happiness doesn't depend on anyone else's choices. If you're going through something similar, remember this. The worst days can be the ones that set you free. You might feel broken, lost, or angry, but the only way out is through. And when you come out the other side, you'll be stronger, wiser, and more yourself than ever before. Life can change in one day, and sometimes that's exactly what you need.